Hi, good morning slash afternoon slash evening to all of our viewers across the globe. My name is Hong and I'm with Knowledge for Free, and today I'm going to be interviewing Phi Dang for our seventh live stream of the You Ask, We Answer series. This introducing Phi Dang. Would you like to say a few words of introduction?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Phi Dang, and I am currently working at Google. I used to work at Facebook for over 2.5 years, and before that, I was a student and studied at UCLA. And I'm here to answer any kind of questions that you have about computer science, about this computer engineering industry and the job, and everything you want to know about Facebook and Google.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for joining us. So we have received quite a lot of queries asking about the computer sciences, industry in particular. And so today we're going to delve into two different things. So firstly, deeper into the computer sciences itself, like what it is and everything. And then we'll move on and talk a bit about Phi's role at Facebook and where he is now and everything. So yeah, it's going to be quite loaded today, but I think it will be very interesting, especially as a sort of an ending to our series of software engineer guests. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. The first question that I want to ask you, Phi, is so many people are interested in the computer sciences. However, they may not be too clear as to what it actually entails. So can you tell us a bit broadly about what computer science actually is?
All right. Yeah, that you start off with a very good question. So so computer science, when people refer to it, it actually comprises of two separate fields in there.
Mm-hmm.
One is called software engineering, and the second is actually the science part of computers. So more broadly, engineering is about using whatever we have known about computers to program them, to write code so that they can do what we want. So for example, you would write code to make an app, like a website, a program to make them do complicated math, for us. So programs like MATLAB is going to be used by scientists to help solve actual really big problems in chemistry or physics and all that. So that's the engineering. And science is actually it's about the science part of that, which is about pushing the boundary of computers and programming. So essentially, it's about trying to make the computer faster by increasing the speed of the CPU, make the graphic card better so that it renders the video a lot better, so you can play video games much smoother, and the graphics is a lot better basically. And those are the easier examples of computer science. A more harder example or harder to imagine would be much more abstract science of computer science, which is finding a new way, inventing a new way to write code, and we call that algorithm. So you would invent new ways to program so that it can improve. It can pretty much you can write code so that it executes it a lot faster, or it helps you do things that it couldn't help you before. So an example of that would be machine learning, and you may have heard of the term floating around. And what it is that it's an algorithm that will help using existing data that we have to give better expectations on newer test cases. New example. So you might have used Facebook image recognition before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is an example of machine learning. So the scientists built an algorithm where it looks at all 1 million photos of human faces, and then it makes an algorithm about that, and then it gives you a better good expectations or results or guess on a new photo, and that's how it works. So those are harder to imagine algorithms, and at Google people do a lot of the science part of computer. Most notably, we have deep learning, which is a very, very complex machine learning algorithm, and that is also the science part of it.
Okay, so it seems like it is really very complex. I mean, like, even though you've pretty much broken it into two categories, they still are very, very big categories. So I assume, like, even within those categories, there would be specific fields as well. And I suppose it's more so in terms of like what people can actually aim towards. So I want to ask, like, can you tell me a bit more about the exact different fields in computer engineering or, well, in computer sciences in general? And, can you describe what they are and perhaps what job prospects each would lead to, if, like, assuming people are going to different streams and all that?
Okay. So let me try to break down computer engineering, because this is what I do, and I know a lot about that. For the science part, since I'm not a computer scientist, I would prefer that that I keep that to myself, and I'm not a really great resource to answer that anyway.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Right. So for the engineering part, let me just use Facebook as an easier example, so you can understand what the different parts of engineering is. So the easiest part to understand or field to understand would be the application or front-end developer field. So that is about building anything that you see visually, right? So if it's an app, that would be whatever you see on the app itself, all the buttons, the scrollable views, the text, all those things displaying the data is the front end part of that. So on the web, it will be whatever you see on there. So it's quite complicated, actually. So you have to render everything the way that you want it to be, the way that the designer decides it to be, and it takes a lot of work too on the front end part. And so anything that you see on the visually is the front end.
Sure. I do want to interject a little bit, if that's all right. A lot of people do ask whether, like, specifically what skills you need for front-end development, but like they're worried like you might need some graphic design skills as well or something similar, because they think that front-end development also means that you need to ensure that the design and everything is up to par. So is that true? Like, do you also need like graphic design skills or something similar as well?
Yeah, so I've heard this question quite frequently, and the answer to that is actually no.
Okay.
You don't need that. Of course, there are companies that sort of would prefer people to know about that, but it's definitely not a required part of the job or this field.
Okay.
And usually, at Facebook or at Google, for example, we hire designers, graphic designers separately. So they would design the website for you, the app for you, and they will send you the exact specs for that. So it will tell you, how many pixels it is, the text is from the left border, for example, how large or how small a certain button is. All those are specs, and then they'll be provided by the designer. So as the engineer, you would follow the specs and design it the way that is given in the specs for you. So that skill is definitely not required at all. Being able to design or build graphics, that is not required at all.
Cool, awesome. I think that's very good to hear for a lot of people.
Right, and of course, I would if you're able to do that, that'd be great. But it's definitely not required at all. And at least for the past 3 years that I worked as a front-end engineer, I never had to design anything. It is pretty much I would get the design from the designer and then just implement that in code. Okay,
so sorry, I just wanted to ask one last thing. Would you say that I guess it's easier when you're in, I suppose, bigger companies that have like a bigger budget, perhaps, where they might be able to, hire different people for different roles, as compared to maybe smaller companies where they might actually be more likely to request that you have you have all the skills that they need? Would you say that that could be a correct assessment?
So, across the companies that I know here, in the Bay Area at least, I've always seen front-end engineers to mostly do coding part and almost never touch the design part.
Okay, awesome.
The companies always hire designers separately. The designers, though, it'll be preferred that they know how to code, because they then they will be able to communicate with the engineer a lot better.
Okay.
And sometimes they can help with the coding part as well. So about 30% of the front end work is the actual styling of the UI. So the actual changing the pixels, the fonts, the width and height of certain elements on the screen. Those can be done by a designer too. They can help out with that.
Okay.
Yeah, and the engineers can then focus their time on the other 70%, which is more on the architecture layer of the front end part.
Awesome. All right, cool. Awesome. Thanks. Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, you're welcome. And let me return to the question on what are the different fields in computer engineering. And I was talking about front end, and front end for Facebook will be the app that you see, the website that you view, right? And whatever you see on there is going to be a front end job, and the front end people will work all the way down to sort of the actual data that they receive from the server, and use that to display to on the view for you, right? So, but as soon as they send the request to get the data, they are not responsible for how the data is built or retrieved from database, and that job is done by the back-end people. So, which takes us to the next point, which is the next field is back-end developer. So, they are the people who build a lot of things on the server side, and so they would build the database, how to store the data into a particular table, how to retrieve them, and most importantly, how to retrieve them fast. There's a lot of things on a lot of websites that require fetching a lot of things really fast. So, for example, at Facebook, you want to fetch a list of friends, of your friends, right? And there's like 2 billion people on Facebook, and you need to find a good way to quickly fetch your 1,000 friends and display that on the screen right away. And that requires a lot of optimization on the server side part. Just imagine a table of 2 billion people. It is kind of difficult to just look through every single one of them and find which one is your friend, right? So a good algorithm is needed to optimize that so that you get a lot of things really fast. So and the next field is called data scientist, and this is a very interesting field. It deals with the data that we have, and in a concept that would be newsfeed. So you can see that every single person has a different newsfeed, right? So my newsfeed is definitely different from your newsfeed, for example. And there's a lot of algorithm in the background to prioritize what to be shown there. So it could be the friends that are closest to you will show up first, followed up by certain businesses that you like, certain pages that you like, and followed by a lot of your friends that you don't contact with too frequently. So those are the job of the data scientists that look at all the data. They decide here are certain algorithms that we can use to display data. So there's still a lot of data work at Facebook. A lot of them are, they cannot disclose. But this is one example that that's easy to understand, and hope that you can get what data scientist means.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, and lastly, there will be computer scientists. So they work on all the hardware and the software part, trying to push the boundaries of computers. So at Facebook, we have a team that built Oculus. So for those who don't know, Oculus is a VR device that looks like a pair of glasses. It's kind of big like this. You can put it on your face. Yeah, and then you can sort of play games in 3D, and you can turn your head and you can see the world changes in front of you. So those are very complicated science that these people pursue. They spend a lot of time understanding how to optimize or use the power of the hardware and the software combined to push this boundary and then try to get that to work.
Sure. So I suppose with computer science, it's about always trying to find something new to develop and to push the boundaries. So they're more like researchers, I suppose.
Right. Yeah, they're computer scientists, research scientists. The labels at these companies don't matter too much. It's mostly the work that you do. So a lot of people are called scientists or researchers for that same reason. And it's just new stuff that has not been done anywhere else, and they're presuming that they're the ones who are pushing the boundary.
Sure. Awesome. All right. Thanks for that explanation. I think all of us can understand a lot better what entails computer engineering in particular. So what would you say one should need to study computer sciences or computer engineering in particular in your case, in terms of the skills, knowledge, and I guess mindset?
Yeah. All right. This is a very common question too. I have a lot of friends who sort of suddenly find interest in this field and want to know whether there are certain prerequisites to learn this computer science.
Yeah, right. Especially in terms of I suppose what skills might be necessary for all the fields and which ones are specific to which fields and everything. I think that's quite interesting to know.
Right. Yeah. So contrary to a lot of people's belief, it actually requires nothing to be able to learn computer science. So you don't have to be good at any field, not biology, math, physics, chemistry, not at all. This is not something that you have to be really good at in school to be able to start learning computer science. And that's the beauty of this field. It's very new, and it has not been introduced in most schools' curriculums yet. And it also happens to not be dependent on any other subjects to master. And I've had friends, at least one friend of mine, who graduated at UC Berkeley as a business major. And then he decided that, hey, this field is actually not for me. I want to do computer science.
Okay.
So he spent the next 6 months just studying computer science by himself. And after that, he got a job at Microsoft. And now he's working at Uber and for the past 2 years.
Wow,
and,
6 months. And then he got a job at Microsoft.
Right. So
that's amazing.
It's just about that much time. So like I said, it doesn't require you to know anything. But it doesn't mean that anyone can learn this field. It's important that there are a couple of things that you need to have, and or at least is your mindset, pretty much. And I want to talk about determination. This is a field that requires a lot of determination to be able to be good at it. And the reason is, first, there's a lot to learn. There's just, like I said earlier, there are many fields in computer science, and there's a lot of things that we don't know at the start, and you need to be able to learn all those things. But the good thing is that all these courses are online. You can take them anywhere you want, and it's very cheap to learn too. There are many websites like Udemy, Coursera, Udacity. These teach everything you want to know about how to program, how to even start coding, right? What is coding? It will explain all that to you. You can learn how to code, write some simple program to, solve some really small problem, or print out some, a funny shape like a star, for example. So those are really good starting resources. And then you can start learning about how to write an app, how to write a website, and how to build the entire, end-to-end flow of starting a website and seeing it and submitting that to a domain. All those things you can learn from courses online, but it will take a lot of time, and you want to invest a lot of time in that. I've seen a lot of people give up actually in the middle of the course, and the reason is that the nature of computer science is that you don't always get it right. So you would write code, you would compile it, run it, and then it doesn't work the way you want. And people tend to get frustrated by that a lot of times. That, hey, how do I do this? It just doesn't work. I thought I got it right, and then they give up on it, right? And people who are able to just persevere throughout, just keep on learning, keep on finding new ways to solve a problem. They're the people who tend to then succeed in this field and are able to get a job and and all that. So yeah, and second thing is that it requires a lot of practice. So to get a job at software companies like Google or Facebook, you have to pass the interview process. And in this interview, they always ask you coding questions, like every single one of them. So you'd be solving problems on the whiteboard. They will ask you, it's a little bit math and computer science, but you need to write the code on the whiteboard and prove to them that this is the best solution for that problem, right? And the interview is only 45 minutes. It's really fast, and you need to practice this beforehand first, and do a lot of problems beforehand. Solve 100 problems, for example, and only then you feel enough confidence and enough ability to quickly find out a good solution for a certain problem, so that you can do the interview well. So yeah. And lastly, this computer science field has a lot of challenges too. Problems are difficult. Certain things have not been done before, and you're the one to find the answer to that. And so without determination, it will be quite difficult to overcome them. And that is why I think that being able to have this mindset is very important to succeed in this field.
Awesome. I do actually have a question in relation to what you were saying about having to solve a problem in an interview, like on the whiteboard and everything, because that was something that has come up quite a lot in various interviews and questions and everything. And I just wonder, like, what is the expectation in terms of how fast you are when you solve it? Like, is it something that they expect you to look at it and then almost immediately think of a solution, or is it something where they expect you to think about it a little bit and then solve the equation, solve the problem, or is it more about like how you solve the problem, what like the final solution is?
Okay, yeah, I can definitely provide more context on this. So I used to be an interviewer at Facebook.
Okay.
Interviewed over 25 people or so. So not a lot, but at least I have some kind of context.
Sorry about that technical issue.
Yeah. So to answer your question, that the candidate is able to solve the question by the 45 minutes deadline. Definitely not right away. Definitely not be able to come up with a solution immediately after being asked, because that's not humanly possible unless you already know the answer to this, right? And usually they would expect that you follow a certain thought process from the question. You figure out there are these certain steps, and you communicate with the interviewer whatever is going on in your mind, how you tackle this problem. So you would explain the entire thought process to them. And eventually you would arrive at a close to optimal solution. And you would then prove to them that this is the solution. It's going to work. You would give them an example that here's a test case, and here's how I think my code will solve that, and prove to them that the code actually produces the right output that for the question. And that's when the interviewer will tend to say, hey, that looks good. You can begin writing code.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, and that's when you spend the next about 20 minutes or so to write the code and finish that. And this is where you want to make sure that you don't introduce any bugs in your code. And it covers a lot of different scenarios and not break on some weird cases.
Yeah.
We call them edge cases, like cases that are very rare to happen, but they do exist. And the interviewer wants to see that you're able to come up with all these cases and cover a lot of different scenarios. Yeah, so usually by about the 35-minute mark, you should have been able to finish writing the code, explain to them why it works, and the interviewer will be then quite happy about it. They will then ask you, hey, can you write a test for this? So you can come up with some test cases to test the code. And they might introduce one or two more smaller follow-up questions.
Okay.
If this question with a certain condition, how would you change your code to fit that? And that's when you can, explain to them, hey, you can optimize a certain part in your code, make some small changes to make that work. And so the entire process is about seeing that this candidate is able to think logically, is able to solve the problems fast enough, is able to communicate their line of thought, because communication is very important in this job. This is not a individual work. It's about being able to explain to the whole team how this part of whatever you think of is going to be a good solution for the team, right? And lastly, you are able to write code fast and it doesn't make careless bugs. So those are the qualities that they are looking for. So it's definitely not about finding the right solution right away. It's about all those 4 different aspects of the need. And that's what they're looking at.
Okay. So even if someone might not be able to write the code or solve the problem very very efficiently, but if they have good thought process and everything, would you still consider them, or is it essential that they have to figure out something?
So based on my experience so far, it is essential that you eventually arrive at a close to optimal solution, right? I've had a lot of people who friends or people I know who interview and got to a decent solution but not optimal, and sometimes they don't get an offer.
Okay.
I've had that a lot, and I've also had people who have arrived at optimal solutions for all the interviews but still don't get an offer. And like I said, it's the bar for this job is a bit high, and they do tend to want to hire people who can both solve the problem fast and optimally, and also be able to communicate what they do to the interviewer.
Okay.
Right.
Wow. So that sounds like it's very hard. But I mean, I suppose to be able to work at Facebook, you do need to be able to achieve both. Is that the same, by the way? Do you reckon at other large companies like Google and Microsoft and similar?
Yeah, I have interviewed at several companies before, and the experience are quite similar. The way they interview is very close. It's mostly focusing on the coding questions, like I mentioned, and they don't vary too much. Maybe the nature of the question can be slightly different between the companies, but overall, if you just practice for interview questions, essentially, that should apply for all software companies.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. So moving on, I do want to delve a bit deeper into your background, because I believe that, I know that you graduated from UCLA, which is very strong in terms of computer sciences and computer engineering in particular. So I just want to ask, how was your experience at UCLA, and what did you like about UCLA, and what would you have liked to see there, perhaps?
Yeah. So I spent about 4 years at UCLA to finish my bachelor degree, and I'd say those were one of the really great years of my life. I was able to make a lot of friends, build a lot of great relationships, and it was also when It was when I started to grow up into an adult, and a lot of things happened. Just moving out, living in an apartment, trying to live by myself, taking care of everything. So those were really good years for me to grow personally as well. And I value all the social friends that I was able to build during those times. And in terms of the school part or the academic part of UCLA, I really enjoy it. There were a lot of amazing courses, and they tend to teach you broadly. So they will teach you not just computer science, which is my major, They would ask you to learn about business, about art,
Okay.
about the history of Japan, for example. And those are really interesting courses that, I wouldn't just learn that by myself. But, when I had to take those, I realized that there are a lot of cool things to learn, and I had a lot of fun there. But however, in terms of the major itself, I would like to see a lot of improvements in there. We have really great professors in UCLA, but they tend to teach quite really outdated knowledge. Like they would teach you things that are no longer relevant in the industry.
Okay.
So for example, the differences in programming languages, and they use example of languages that are way back in the 1990s that we don't use anymore, and they will teach you exactly how computers work and the history of computers, which are great to know, but they are not the best thing to know for the industry. Things that are actually relevant for the industry is actually how to write a website, how to build a website, how to build an app, how to build a server, how to use the most recent computer technologies to build whatever we want today. And those are the courses that are not offered at school, which I feel is very important, and that is lacking.
Okay.
Yeah, so and overall, I would rate that what I have learned at UCLA is only about 10 to 20% relevant to what I do at Facebook or Google.
Okay.
So just quite unfortunate. But the thing is, this is not, I don't think this only applies to my school. I have had friends who, from other different colleges, who express the same thinking or same feeling that their colleges don't teach the right materials for this industry. And most of my friends have to learn these things by themselves, taking courses online, and just working on side projects after school. So I did that a lot. I spent time at night just learning how to write a website. So it took a lot of time to learn, and a lot of readings, a lot of research by myself. But I do feel that those are what is needed to actually get an internship or a job at these companies. Okay. And that's something I would really love to see them change at UCLA, that they introduce these kind of courses to the school.
Well, that is a bit of a shame, isn't it? I do hope that maybe UCLA might, who knows, might be watching this, and they might, take a heed of your suggestions. Yeah. So in that case, then, if not UCLA, where do you think you would prefer to have studied at, perhaps?
So even though what I've just said about the school not offering the courses that I would love to see, I don't think I would want to trade my years for another 4 years at a different college.
Okay.
Yeah, those are really great times that I have. I've made a lot of friends, and I wouldn't want to trade those years anywhere else, right? So what I'm saying here is that whatever school you do end up to, it will probably be a great school for you. The connections that you build over there will be very, very helpful. Those are the friends that you build are going to be with you for the rest of your life, and I think those matter a lot more. For the job or the major in particular, I've already mentioned that it's about learning these courses online. It's about self-learning. It's about working on side projects that help you be good at this and be able to add things to your resume and get a good internship or a job. I would say you should be able to do that at any school that you study at. It shouldn't matter too much.
Okay.
Of course, the reputation of the school will help a bit. If you study from really famous colleges like MIT, for example, that will definitely give you a great start. But in the end, you will still end up at the interview process. And whoever does the interview better will be higher.
Oh,
So
okay.
it will only help you that far. It won't help you pass the interview stages, and that requires a lot of self practice at home. So yeah, in overall, I would say self learning is what it takes for success in this field. And any school you study at will be a great school anyway for you. So yeah, in overall, my advice for you or for people who are in colleges now and are starting this major would definitely be to do well in school, of course, but try to take a lot of self-learning courses online. There are a lot of resources. Feel free to ping me or ping Hung for more to get more of these resources on the website. I will definitely let you know what are the good courses to learn. Yeah, but taking them online would be very, very helpful. And then also do a lot of coding practices.
Sure.
Solving a lot of interview questions, because they will come very essential when it comes to the interview for your internship or your job.
Sure. After this interview, I guess I'll put in some links to the courses that you did mention, like Udemy and Audacity and Coursera, into the live stream description. So that if anyone is interested, they can come go and check them out. Otherwise, if you have any other ideas or any links or any courses or whatever you suggest, you could also add it on as well. Yeah, so I guess that's enough about the learning side of things, and also pretty much the prepping for interviews and all that. I do actually want to ask you a bit more about Facebook. I do know that you are working at Google now, but you have spent quite a lot of time on Facebook, and I think that's something that's quite interesting. So I do want to delve into that just a bit more. So can you explain exactly what you did at Facebook?
Sure. So, well, the good thing is the nature of my job is front-end, which makes it a lot easier to talk to your friends or to everyone about what I do. If I were a back-end engineer, it would be quite difficult because it would be some really deep technical system that is hard to describe. So I spent 2.5 years at Facebook across 2 different teams, and the first team I worked at is called the Composer team. So Composer on the web is the box that you use to write your post.
Oh.
So, right. So if you go to facebook.com and there's a box at the top that says what's in your mind, you're going to use that to write posts, right?
Yeah.
So I used to own that entire
wow.
Composer.
Oh, so that was yours. So you made that for everyone to use.
No,
well, not
that.
made,
it was there before I joined, but there was a lot of work that needed to be done over there. So it was a very small team. It was like a 2-3 people team. In the end, I was the only one left. I became the owner of that whole thing. So in that 1.5 years, I built new features there. So I can give specifics because they're probably not out yet. But it's just new features about photos, about adding more text, about adding your minutia, which are the feelings, like I'm feeling happy or something like that. So yeah, I helped work on those things. I also have redesigned the entire Composer. It used to look different. So I'm the one who sort of make it look very different now, and it's the one that you see.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, and which is something that I really enjoy at Facebook, which is I get to work on things that are seen by 2 billion people, and it's a fun thing to do, to just make things that affect not the life, but more like the experience of a lot of people.
I do like it a lot now. I like how I can pretty much do anything with it and add on a lot more options. That's actually very helpful. That was quite a big change from the old Composer from way back when. Yeah, and I'm glad you like it. So yeah, and I also work on the architecture part of that Composer. And for those who are not clear what architecture means, so architecture is just a very fancy word for code being written in an organized way.
So you want to organize the code so that you can avoid duplication. You don't have to rewrite the same piece of code elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You can just use whatever you have written elsewhere, right? And it'll be, just lighter, and you can load the website faster, right? And it also make it easier for other engineers to reuse your work to build new features and use the composer elsewhere in a different page on Facebook. So actually, the composer is used at a lot of places at Facebook. For example, on your timeline, there's also the composer. On a page, there is a composer too, but they have different functionalities.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you want to write a good architecture so that people can then use your core composer and add in different fields or features and remove features that they don't want. So that is a very important job, part of the job as well. So the next team I worked on was Libido. So I hope that, we're on live right now. And,
yeah.
That is Libido.
Mm-hmm. So is this your brainchild right here? The live video, like everything that we're doing right now, live, that's made possible by you. Is that correct?
No, I definitely would not say that I claim the entire thing. I worked on. It was a very big team.
Uh-huh.
It is like a 50 people team to 100 people team, and I work on the iOS part of it actually.
Okay.
So if you're a viewer and you are watching on your iPhone, I helped build part of that,
mm-hmm.
and it was a very great experience for me. I was able to learn building web on the previous team, and then I worked on iOS, which also helped me learn how to build mobile apps. And so I helped build some new features there. You may not see them because it may not be used by a lot of people, but there are features that are used by celebrities
mm-hmm.
who are going live to a lot of people, and these features are only specific to celebrities because they need those features.
Okay.
Moderation in the comments. They want to because a lot of people comment on their post.
Yeah.
They want to view things differently that we don't have this problem to begin with.
Okay. Well, I do want to say thank you then to you and the rest of the team for making this possible. Without Facebook live stream, it would have been very hard to do any of these events.
Oh, thanks. Like I said, I wouldn't claim any credit for doing this. Facebook has a really great pool of talented engineers, and we all together build this product, mm-hmm. and we try to help as much as we can. And And to finish up your question, I also helped the architecture part of Libido as well. And Libido started as an experimental project. It was a group of like 5-10 people trying to work on this, and only for celebrities. And then it got really popular suddenly. People just really love going live. And that's why Facebook decided to build a brand new team, a really big team of like 50, 100 people to invest in this. And at that point, the code was not very well written. It was like hacky code trying to be put together so that it works. So, which is why a good architecture now is very important, so that we have a more stable structure and there's less bugs. And I helped a lot with that work as well.
Cool.
Yeah, so I hope that to give you enough context on what I did the past 2.5 years at Facebook.
Awesome. Yeah, that definitely does give a lot of context, and it's very interesting learning about what you did in particular at Facebook. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they think about something like, say, Facebook, where there's so many different features, they don't really quite understand just how much effort is put into it. But then when you described, the composer and what you and the rest of your team did with it, and also live videos, I think it really did open a lot of people's minds in terms of like, wow, so if just that, that one or two features require a team of 50 to 100 people or even more perhaps, then just exactly how many people have to be working on how many different features at once at Facebook just to make sure that everything is running smoothly. I mean, like obviously there's not just the composer, there's also the timeline, how it's done, the news feed, the live stream videos, and even the search and groups and pages and everything, and that's always optimized. And I think it's very cool that a place like Facebook is always making sure that the user's experience is always improving over time. Yeah, but so that was Facebook, and I think we could talk a bit more about Google, I suppose. So you recently left Facebook, well, relatively recently, and you start working at Google. Can you tell us a bit about what you did at Google now, and perhaps the reasons why you did switch?
Yeah. So I recently changed to Google about half a year ago, and I have returned to working on the website, on the web instead of the iOS, and I'm still a front-end engineer. It is a field that I really love because I get to do things that I can talk to people about. It's visual. I can point to what I do and explain to my friends that this is the future that I built. And unfortunately, the nature of my projects at Google now is very confidential. It is very confidential.
Okay.
That
That's
is
very
not
interesting.
talked within Google. So even my friends at Google don't know what I do. I can't communicate with them. So it's very secretive. It is not always like that at other teams at Google. It's just that this is a very different investment or opportunity at Google that they have just started. And I would love to tell you what I do, but we'll have to wait until we have official confirmation by the team that they can be shared publicly. And I'm sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, I can definitely talk more about why I decided to change or switch from Facebook to Google, and yeah, there are many reasons with this switch, and there's one personal reason, which is just being closer to the office. I recently bought a home, and it is a little bit far from Facebook, so and Google is slightly closer, and the switch would definitely help me with being able to balance my work and life. I have more time instead of on traffic. I have more time to for my family and for my personal time. But the main reason was actually work related, and it's company culture at Facebook. I first want to emphasize that Facebook is a really great company. They have a lot of talented people. They were able to build very successful features and products, and they have a great leader. Mark Zuckerberg is an awesome CEO. And
I want to stop you right there because I think this is one question that a lot of people will want to know. Have you ever actually met Mark Zuckerberg?
So I've met him many times. I just haven't talked to him.
Okay.
That's all. So Mark has an office right in the middle of the entire Facebook building, and it is transparent.
Okay.
So we'll see him always. He's always in meetings, talking to a lot of people, seeing presentations about opportunities and all that. But he's always there. And I happen to work right where his office is, so I can see him all the times.
Oh wow!
So yeah, and also he does a weekly Q&A. So every single Friday, people would gather at a really large room, and he would be on stage. He would answer all the questions you have about the company, about the company's missions, why it's doing certain things, and it's where the employees get to ask really tough questions to the CEO about why we're doing certain things that we do, and is it evil? Is it good? Can we make it even better for other people? And Mark would answer all these questions very nicely, and we can all tell that he tried to do the best that he can to help the community, and that's something I really respect from Mark Zuckerberg.
Okay, that's great. It's great to hear that he's pretty much the same person that is seen in real life, as in in the company.
Yeah. So I only want to share the reason I switched, which is the culture of the company. That it used to fit me a lot. It's just that it doesn't fit me anymore. And for more details, you may have heard of the company's motto named "Move Fast and Break Things." It's grown very famous, and people tend to know about this. And the truth is, they really do buy this motto. The company really moves fast, even on the scale of 20,000 engineers. We try to move really fast, and so we would build new features as fast as we can, and then try to public test that as fast as we can. And the decision would be to forego code quality in favor of rolling them out fast. And then the reason is that if you roll out fast, you will then know whether this is a successful feature that we should invest in more, or we can just drop it right away, right? So it's important that we try to roll out really fast, and that's why the app tends to be quite buggy a lot of times. And people have talked to me a lot about this, like, hey, why is the app always crashing, right? And that's the reason. It's that people tend to forgo code quality part, so that we get to roll out things faster. And unfortunately, I'm more of the architecture person. I like to write really stable code with really proper testing. I spend a lot of time thinking about how to write the code in a very nice, well-structured way, so that there will be rarely any bugs, and that the engineers can quickly, answer that, improve on it really quickly, instead of having to go through a lot of debugging sessions. And unfortunately, this is not something the company values too much. They would prefer that I write code as fast as I can, and this is something that I don't enjoy. And I used to enjoy that a lot when I graduated and joined Facebook. It was when I didn't know about a lot about engineering, and I wanted to roll out features as fast as I can so that I can talk about that to my friends. But now I prefer to do it the right way, the engineering way, and write very well written code. And it's something that is not offered to Facebook. And so that is one reason. And to get you to understand a little bit more about architecture, just think about building a skyscraper, for example. This is a very big structure that you will want to start by building a very strong foundation first, right? And then build the levels, the stories, and then add a lot of decorations and all that. And for me, I would always want to build a strong foundation, but at Facebook, they would tend to want to build read that and then see whether the building is successful first. If there are people wanting to rent out the levels for the offices, just is the building successful? That's the first question. If it is not, we can just give it up and then move on.
Sorry, it's motion sensor here. It's really annoying. Anyways, yeah.
So that's the culture part. One reason why I wanted to go to Google, because Google has a very different culture in that aspect. It does value the quality of the code very much. We test every single thing that we write, so there's very little room for bugs there. So at the cost of longer shipping time, so a project can take twice as long or even 2 times as long compared to Facebook to get something roll out. But once they're roll out, it tends to be a lot more stable, and nothing breaks. And I get to learn a lot about how to architecture the code the right way from really great senior engineers there. Which leads me to the next point about Facebook, which is there are a lot of young engineers at Facebook. But by young, I mean from the age of like 20 to 30, very young. And I've had my managers being about the same age as me, 26, 27, and they have a lot of energy. People spend a lot of time at work. They might be willing to work late at night or even over the weekend to get things to be done. So, but unfortunately, this set up a unrealistic expectation on how much you should work. And I used to be like that too, spend a lot of time at work, but then now I want to focus more on, personal time, invest on, exercising and, other skills apart from work. And this affects, my work-life balance a lot, and which is why I prefer to change to an environment where people are, just older, slightly wiser, and they have family, which means they have more time to focus on their personal time. And they will also be able to mentor me. So mentorship culture is something that's also lacking in Facebook because people are young. They want to be able to make a lot of impact. They spend most of their time, working, trying to ship out new things, new features, and at the cost of, not having enough time to mentor younger generations, new engineers. And that's something that I appreciate now at Google, where we have people who are, have been in the company for 7 to 10 years, and they have done this job a long time. They have a lot of insights, and they're always eager and ready to transfer the knowledge or teach the younger generation. And that's why I decided that for all those reasons, Google is now a better place for me to be as an engineer. I will get to learn more and have more balance with my life. But don't take me wrong, where I said that Facebook is not a good company. Facebook is a great company, and those the companies are really great. And I would say that an opportunity at one of those would be a really great one for you.
Sure, of course. It does sound like whether it's Facebook or Google, you could always do well and you could always enjoy the work a lot. It just depends on each person's individual circumstances. But are you able to give me a broad comparison between, say, the hours that you put in at Facebook compared to Google?
So it would be quite obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So at Facebook, I would probably work the normal working hours and then at night. And on weekends, sometimes too, probably 5 hours per weekend. People still message me over the weekend. They will ask questions, and the reason for this is that there are people who are working on the weekend, and if I'm not helping them out, then I'm pretty much a blocker for the team. So it's important that I also help unblock a lot of people here, and which is why if most of the team are working on the weekend, the rest of the team should also work on the weekend, just so we can keep up with the pace of the work.
Yeah.
So that is what it has been for the past 2.5 years for me. At Google, things are very different. At roughly 6 p.m., I receive no messages from the team at all. Nobody talks or email or message me at all. And same thing for the weekend. So you can see that people have other priorities. People have their families, the kids, and they spend the rest of their time with them. And they would spend a lot of time at work to focus on work. But after the work hour, everyone is focusing on their life. And that is a great balance for me.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you very much for that. So I think that's everything that I personally want to cover today. That was a very interesting interview, and thank you so much for describing a bit more about computer sciences in general, and also your time at Facebook and everything. Moving on to guest questions, not guest questions, sorry. Questions. There are a number of questions that people have asked during this talk, and I do want to just pass some of them on. So Jimmy Chen has a few questions for you. The first one was, how did you get your roles in Microsoft, Google, and Facebook? And how many applications did you make before you got accepted? And did you need a referral? Are you able to just briefly talk about that?
All right. So I interned at Microsoft for 2 summers, and followed up by an internship at Google. After that, I joined Facebook. So those were my different companies that I worked for during college and after college. And so in terms of how many applications I've sent out quite a number of applications. So there are a lot of companies out there, and I sent to 20 of them, I'd say, all kinds of companies, software engineering, all of them. And I guess I was lucky to be able to get an internship at Microsoft even in my first year of college, and that really helps with the resume, and having one internship at Microsoft makes it easier to get another internship elsewhere. So and that was very helpful. So I'd say, when I applied for internship at Facebook and Google in the first 2 years, I was rejected too. So it's a very common thing to be rejected. They have very high bars for even interns. So I got rejected at Facebook 2 times before I even got accepted as an engineer at Facebook. So if you're in my situation, don't feel bad. It's just that's the way it is. It's a very tough company or companies to start. I've had friends who submit applications many times to be able to get accepted, and it's just that there are a lot of talented people out there, but Facebook has just limited number of positions they can fill in,
of course,
which makes it very tough.
Sorry, can I just clarify as to whether you were rejected prior to the interviews or after the interview?
I was rejected on the resume stage at a couple companies, and also rejected after the interviews by Facebook and Google afterwards. So it's only in the 3rd year of my college that I was accepted to Google as an intern.
Okay, so I guess the moral of the story is if you don't succeed, try again, because sometimes it's not about you, sometimes it's just they have enough people, I guess.
Right. Yeah, so like I said, determination is a very big mindset to have for this field. My friends have applied to the same companies many times, and in the end, they get accepted. So then you should never give up. If you are rejected, it just means that you need to practice more, and as soon as you practice more, you have a lot better chance to get accepted. They don't mark you as someone who will be disqualified forever or anything like that. It's just that for this particular interview, you don't do well, but they give you the opportunity to come back another time to re-interview. So during those time, just keep up your strong energy, focus on practicing, keep on learning, keep on doing great things, and you will accept it one day.
Awesome. A follow-up question by Jimmy. I guess this is referring to what I was asking you earlier about the time you spent at Facebook or Google. How much time would you say, like what proportion of the time of your work time would you say would be spent on coding, and what would be on your other things?
So as an engineer, I'd say about 60% of the time is going to be coding. About 40% of the time is going to be going to meetings, talking to people, communicating what you're going to do next, writing documentations, because coding is difficult and it's hard to understand. You want to write that in English so that people know what you're doing. And finally, reviewing other people's code. It's a very important part of the job, where when you write your code, you submit it. It doesn't mean that you get accepted into the company's code base. And you want other people to look at your code, see whether anything is going wrong. They will help you review whatever you did, and then give you comments, and agree that this is the right thing to do. And that's when you get accepted. So you will do the reverse thing to them as well, where you review and see they're doing a great job. They're not messing around with your team's code. And finally, you get to understand what they do, so that you have a bigger understanding of the entire team's work in general, so you can contribute more later on in your career.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. And I guess last question before we wrap up. So a question from Chang Do. So how do you keep yourself from being outdated in such an ever-changing field? I assume like especially when you might consider moving from one place to another or even like in the same company. Is there things that you always have to read up on, or is it more just just making sure that you keep on practicing or something similar?
Right. So that's a very important question. So for computer engineering in general, or at least for my field, front-end engineering, there are always new technologies out there. I can name a few, but I don't think it might be too familiar with you.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we have React.js, which is a framework designed by Facebook. There's Angular.js, which is also designed by Google to sort of do the same thing, which is to build websites fast. And there will be more and more new frameworks like that in the future. And I used to think that learning all this is very important. Being able to master all these new frameworks is the right thing to do. But in the end, I realized that is not something that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
Learning all this framework is very quick, it's very fast. You can spend a week, just trying out different things, and then you figure it out. You figure out why a new framework is needed in the first place, and what does it take to use the framework to build the website or the app that you want to build, right? So that is not essential at all. The actual thing that you want to learn or master is the principle, the code principles, how to write really good code, and that's something that you have to train and learn from mentors. At Google, I learned a lot about this, and Facebook too, and there are a lot of good, conventions on how to write great code, and this is something that is hard to understand, hard to learn. You have to really do it, and then realize that hey, actually, this way is actually a much better way to do it, because you don't see it now, but maybe half a year later, you realize that this way of writing code will lead to a lot of problems. But a different way will not. And this is something that you will learn eventually. And that is a lot more important than learning different frameworks. So I would say don't you worry about different technologies that are out there. So further learn all these insights about code quality, about writing really well-written code. That is a lot more important. Of course, there are things that the field itself may be changing too. There might be frameworks in front end, but the value of front end might change in the future, and that's something else. For example, data mining or machine learning are becoming a very popular field of computer science these days, and I don't know if that's going to be the only job that's going to be hired in the future. It's hard to say. So it's always good to understand what the industry is heading to, what is the popular field that they're looking for, that they are hiring. And then at Google has become pretty much an AI company now, and Microsoft is doing the same thing. I think they're an AI first company too, where they're always doing data mining and machine learning stuff, and it sort of means that maybe keeping in mind of all these changes in the industry is very important. And there's no harm in just taking self-loading courses at night, just so you can not lose out in the ever-changing field of computer science. That is definitely recommended too. I do that all the time. I read up on different things that are not front-end engineering, just so I can keep myself updated with the field and not lose out in this industry. And it will definitely help you in your job as well. That's what I think.
Awesome. All right, thank you very much for that. I think that just about covers everything that Kimi talks about today. So I suppose we will end the interview now. All right, so yeah, thank you very much for your time, and to our viewers, I hope you enjoyed that interview, and I hope you've learned a lot. Phi, I assume if any viewers afterwards have any questions, I assume you're happy to answer them.
Yeah, don't worry about that. I will definitely gonna keep myself in touch with the viewers. I'll look at your comments and I'll answer any questions that you have. And again, thanks a lot for this opportunity from Knowledge for Free. I love this opportunity to be able to help anyone who is interested in this field and is curious about what I do at Facebook and just a job in general. I'd love to share that, and this is a great opportunity for me to do that.
No, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you a lot for coming on as our guest.